Hi there, and welcome to a bonus episode of my writing advice and inspiration podcast, OMAKASE. Every month, I put up a poll on my Patreon page, patreon.com/mkaren, and my patrons pick one topic out of the usual three, and I make a full video/workshop all about it. Today, we're going to be talking about the creative reset. How do you get back to coming up with new ideas after retreading the same old ground, the same old characters, the same old situation for a very, very long time? How do we get back to trying new things? How do we get back to writing? Now, before we get started, there's one piece of housekeeping that I have to go over, and that is that if you happen to be one of my patrons, if you're watching this early, guess what? There's a poll on my page right now to decide the topic for the next workshop. The three options are as follows. Write what you know. Finally, a chance for me to dissect this particular literary advice that gets tossed around a lot. When should you use personal experience for writing something, for creating fiction, and when should you stay away from it? That's what I'm going to be talking about in Write What You Know. The second topic is time management using flow time. If you have been following me forever, you know that I have been using the Pomodoro method for years, and I am no longer doing that. I found a new system that absolutely fits my needs, and after testing it for several months, I want to tell you all about it on the second topic option. And the last one, but by no means least, the funny option. Max's birthday bash. My birthday's coming up, and I figured, you know what? What better way to spend my birthday than by embarrassing myself in front of all of you? By going through some of my oldest stories/story ideas and analyzing them, finding the good and definitely accounting for all the bad in some of my oldest story ideas. Again, if you happen to be a patron and you're watching this early, you should go and vote on which one of those you want to see. If you are watching this on YouTube around February, guess what? You're too late. But there's a new poll with 3 brand new options in the description of this video. Let's jump into the formal topic of this video, the creative reset. This is a topic that is very fresh on my mind, as this is something that I struggled with recently. I was trying to get a new story started, and through a combination of several factors that I'm going to go over in a little bit, I ended up, to put it bluntly, wasting a lot of time struggling to find my footing in a new story. You know this feeling, is starting chapter 1 after chapter 1, feeling as though you don't really have a grasp on the story, as though it's getting away from you. It feels like a battle. And even when you do push yourself through and write several chapters, write, dozens of pages, it still doesn't feel right. Through this struggle, you end up, and it's okay to admit it, I was doing this, rehashing characters, rehashing ideas, because there's something you liked about that idea. There was something that grabbed you, and you end up playing with it. You end up doing, what a lot of us do, just change the setting, just change one of the characters, change the roles that they serve in the story, and you end up doing a lot of walking in circles, a lot of retreading the same ground, with the same characters, with a different backdrop, or very slightly changed elements here and there. And that right there can be very exhausting. I remember a couple years back where I probably spent a whole month just going through that cycle of I have a really good idea for this story, and I like these characters, and I would try to write them, and I would try to figure out what their story was, but it wouldn't feel right, or something would get in the way, or after, a dozen pages of writing, I would, discover a glaring mistake or a glaring error in my planning. That kind of thing where you think the concept for the story is impenetrable, indestructible, unable to have any kind of flaws, and then 10 pages in you realize, oh, the problem in the story could be solved very easily. That's not good. So what do? You go back to the drawing board. You like these characters, you like this idea for the story, move the pieces around. You've done this. I know, like, all of my friends have done this. It's this idea of wanting to hold on to the things that you love the most. And sometimes you can emerge out of it, but you can spend a long time in this cycle of attempting story ideas, getting stuck, reusing characters, reusing elements, trying to find a way to click these old pieces in new, or arrange them in new, exciting ways. And there comes a point, and this is something that, I'm telling you from experience, there comes a point where something has got to give. And in my experience, in the years of writing, in the years of struggling with this particular thing, the creative reset has been the only thing that's gotten me out of that block. Part of it is being less stubborn, and part of it is being stubborn in different ways. Because I feel that the need for a creative reset comes from us, the writer, the creator, being a little bit stubborn with what goes into the story. We want these characters and this particular element, and sometimes that works out. Sometimes, the stars align and we have that story where everything clicks. And sometimes when it doesn't, we try to force things. And to me, I can recognize it because I've been through this so many times, but I recognize that as the beginning of the downwards decline. When I am holding on to a particular concept, a particular character, and I'm so stuck on it that I'm just kind of going in circles. It's like, okay, well, I like this character, I like this concept, well, what if it's a different setting? What if it's a completely different time? What if this element is changed? What if this character is this thing instead of this thing? And again, I'm not saying that right there is, the sign that you are going to be stuck in there forever in that writer's block. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, from my point of view, from my experience, knowing myself and my own brand of stubbornness, I realize that when I'm holding on too dearly to something, it's time to step back. And here is where I would like to introduce to you the creative reset. There's this big metaphor that I kind of want to bring out, and I don't know how to start it, so I'm gonna just jump in there, okay? The concept of the writer's block. I have always pictured it in my mind as this brick/concrete wall. I imagine myself bashing the wall, sometimes with my head, just trying to break through it, and sometimes that happens. Writing is not a science. It is an art. Sometimes things work out, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes the stars align, and the story doesn't work out. But what matters is that we keep on trying. And through, years of writing, I have found that sometimes the best course of action is not to bash your head against the wall, but simply to walk around it. To climb it, to overcome it. Walls are merely obstacles, a hurdle. And most of the time you can just get around them. How do I get around the writer's block? Well, of course, you start with the hardest possible thing you could do. And I like to just drop this first, mostly because we have to talk about the hardest thing first. You have to let go of that character/idea you want to write. I'm not saying you can't ever write that story idea. Just not right now. Just grab those characters, that story idea, write it down somewhere, like physically write it down somewhere. I like to keep an envelope full of story ideas and just put it back in your desk, in your drawers, somewhere where you can find it. It's there, it's safe. You won't forget about it. But you have to let go of it. And here's where the bad stubbornness shows up. Because I can imagine a few of you, maybe countless of you, are just yelling at your iPods, just going, Max, I can't let go of these characters. I've been working on them for years. What do you mean just put them away? I want to write their story. And that's not inherently a bad thing. You can bash your way through the wall. You absolutely can. What I'm saying is, from my perspective, from my point of view, from my experience, I have found that sometimes you can end up spending a long time hoping to make things work out. And There's been times when I, have put a story away only to pick it up later and finally it clicks. You're not letting go of that story forever. You can come back to it. All I'm saying is that I spent a long time. I hate to say it like this because it reduces life to a goal-based system, but, I wasted a long time trying to make stories work. And I do feel that part of the problem was my own stubbornness. Holding on to particular characters and particular concepts, trying to make something work. And I am not kidding when I say that sometimes I pick up a story years later and I realize, oh, that was what I needed to fix. And suddenly the writing is... the writing is natural again. The writing is effortless again. Sometimes all we need is time. I'm not trying to automatically slip into writing advice that sounds just like life advice, but time heals all wounds. And sometimes you just need a little bit of time. And sometimes, when you have been stuck in that writer's block for months, even years, all you need is just to find yourself a story to just kickstart you getting back into writing. Because the thing that has, throughout the history of storytelling, finished books is excitement. Being excited for a story, wanting to sit down and finish it, wanting to find out what happens next, being the first reader for that novel, and experiencing everything for the first time. That right there, that excitement, that's what finishes novels. And that energy, like right now, if you're imagining yourself in those shoes, if you're imagining yourself with that kind of energy in you, you will realize it is the complete opposite, the polar opposite to that stubborn feeling, that guilt-ridden feeling of wanting to hold on to a particular character and a particular setting and a particular concept. That fantasy world that you came up with when you were in high school. That particular character you made in that role-playing session, in that one game with your friends. Sometimes when you force things to work, they don't. And when the guilt comes in, when you start thinking, well, I've spent so many months trying to make this story work, it would all be a waste if I don't figure out how to make it work now. And the thing is that the time that's passed is the time that's passed. The only thing we have for certain is the present and how we choose to spend it. That's why the first step for the creative reset, the first thing you have to do is just let go of that guilt. Let go of that stubbornness. Just say, I will finish you later. Put that story in the envelope and move on. It's okay. What you have now is the present. Make the most of it. And just stop being so hard on yourself for, the mistakes of the past. You can't fix that. The past is a past. We can't change it. It's there forever. But what matters is what we do moving forward. Learning from our mistakes. Improving and becoming better. That right there. That's how you overcome the past. So, writing advice. That sounds just like life advice. All right. Let's step into a much more lighthearted tone. What is the creative reset? How do I reset my creative senses after, stumbling for months with one particular story, or rather one set of characters, one story idea, and like 1,500 different, modifications of, the parameters inside of that story? I do that a lot. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I come out of it feeling super burnt out, and what I need at that moment is a creative reset. How does it go? It's actually pretty darn straightforward. The first thing I like to do, you can write this down, I like to just do like a mental exercise. I want you to imagine all of the things, all of the avenues. If storytelling was a map, I want you to just create a mental map of all the places you were trying to figure out how to make that one story work. Figure all the avenues, all the places you went to. You tried fantasy, you tried science fiction, you tried dystopian, you tried to do this, you tried to do that, you tried to have the characters be siblings, you tried having them be ghosts of the past, you tried having them be inanimate objects, you have all these things, okay? Just make a mental list or a physical one of all the things you tried. Feel free to pause the video if you want to do that. Good? You got it? Okay, you're not allowed to write about any of those things now. All of those things, locked off. They are on a cooldown. You're not allowed to write about any of those things. That's the first step of the creative reset. You have to step away from all those things you have tried. It is time to try out something new. And I want you to just bask in this feeling right now. If at this moment, if you have let go of the guilt, if you have let go of the stubbornness, and you realize that you have partitioned the reality of storytelling, the world of fantasy, the world of science fiction, you have partitioned all of those elements of storytelling away from the moment. And what stands before you is a great sense of freedom. Because there's so much just storytelling. There is so much to experiencing a story from another person's point of view. And whenever I arrive at this moment, I feel this amazing sense of freedom. And this sense of discovery. I get to try out new things again. I get to discover new things again. And with the sense of freedom comes as a sense of fear. Because if you haven't experienced particular media, who are you to write about it? And what I like to do is this. Once I look over the possibilities, what I could write, when you know what you are not allowed to write or what you are willingly choosing not to touch for the time being, there exists a list of things that you can still do as a matter of fact. And it is now when you have these odds and ends of storytelling, usually the places that you don't venture to very often, the places in storytelling that you seldom try. If you're the kind of person who prefers to do a lot of modern fiction, fiction happening in the current time without fantastical elements, this may be the time to attempt writing something supernatural. Why not try something new? The act of writing is the act of discovery. It is the act of stepping into the unknown and experiencing it for the first time. And I want to believe that at this moment, a bunch of you are feeling that excitement, that sense of wonder. I can try new things. I should at least give it a try. I should give it a try. I should try to write that genre. I should try to write that particular story concept. But you're not ready yet. Because if you have been struggling to figure out a story idea for, months, probably the worst thing you can do right now is to immediately jump into the brainstorming process. Is to immediately start, figuring out a setting, figuring out characters. Stop. Slow down. It is time to do one of my favorite parts of the process. And one that I really only get to experience after having a really, really bad writer's block. And it is time to research. Research with purpose. Decide on the genre / kind of fiction you want to tackle. Because it's not just about genres, it's about particular elements in the story. If you want to attempt a story with non-linear storytelling, then this is your chance. And what you gotta do is to look out for forms of media that have used these elements. Books and movies and shows, things that have done this in their own particular way. Make a list. Look for all the different forms of media that have tackled this particular topic. And experience them. Watch them, read them, play them with purpose. It's not just, time to binge watch the entirety of Twin Peaks. Purposefully watch it. Analyze it. Consider what it does best and what it doesn't do very well at all. Find what you like about them and what you don't. Analyze what appears way too often and what is certainly missing from this setting, from this world, from this concept. Look at the way the story twists and turns. What could you do differently? How could you tackle this particular kind of story? That right there is the point of researching with purpose. It's not just, I want to write about giant robots, so time to watch a bunch of mecha anime. It's not so much like that. But to analyze it. Consider the shortcomings of the story and how you would do them differently. And don't look at the stories as templates. Please, for the love of all things holy and sacred, I beg you to not consider them as templates. Consider each individual story as its own thing. What did they do best? What did they not do well at all, actually? And considering all these versions, all these incarnations of the same feeling, what could you do differently? How could you tackle a story about this in a way that is absolutely, completely yours? That right there is the crux of the creative reset. To let go of what you've done before. To let go of guilt. To be a little bit less stubborn. And to seek to find something you have never done. To feel that inspiration again, that excitement. To discover something new. Researching with purpose? Not to look for patterns, I beg you, don't do that, but look at how they actually tackled the story. What did they do? What would you have done instead? What kind of story would you write if you were to write a story like this? Now, you may be wondering, Max, it looks like this process is going to take a little bit, and yeah, it is going to take a little bit, and that's actually on purpose. I recommend letting this creative recess last a little bit. Maybe even a couple of weeks, honestly. Because you want to also get away from the writing process. If you have been bashing your head against the wall, trust me, writing first chapters becomes a little bit of a pain. So stepping away from that is good. And also because as you begin researching, as just from the very idea that you're just considering writing something you have never done before, a figment of a seed. A story idea is planted in your mind, and you gotta give it time to germinate, to grow, to give you a new perspective. As you begin analyzing characters and motives, twists and turns of the plot, you start to see chances, ways in which you could have done things differently. Completely different avenues you could have taken the story to. A whole new perspective that is missing from all these stories. And you can be the one to write it. And then what? And then what do you do? I know that if you stick to it, just like I have stuck to it, you start feeling the story naturally form itself in your mind. Characters and places begin falling into place. You start having this idea. I mean, really, you had it in you the whole time. It was germinating and growing while you weren't paying attention. And now, once you feel you have something that excites you, it is time to begin the planning process. It is going to take time. But don't all good things take time, though? And most importantly, something that I want to bring into the foreground is that one of the things I regret the most in these last couple of years is rushing through the planning process, jumping in without preparing myself. Nearly every time that I've done that, I've wasted a lot of time backtracking. A lot of time having to have a creative reset. Because when you jump in without planning, without giving the story time to grow in your mind, you end up finding that your story idea might have been a little short-sighted. And you end up having to shuffle the pieces around. Try having this character be this instead of that, changing the setting, and then, well, you know how the rest of that goes. taking time. I know. That can be like the worst thing to hear. Just give it time. But what did I tell you at the beginning? Time's pretty good. Time heals all wounds. And I've just found over time that when I give the story the chance to grow, the chance for it to develop in my mind over days, over weeks, when I finally sit down to write, I seem to struggle a little bit less. But that's just me. There's one more thing I want to make very clear. I wanted to like slide this in, but the tone of the video was kind of changing a little bit at the time. I just want to say one more thing. I beg you, with all of my heart, please, don't go through the entire creative reset just to grab those characters you put in the envelope and plop them back into that story. You can try if you want. Maybe it will work out. But I think that if you have gone so far as to find a new story idea, a new element of fiction that you have never tried, and you researched with purpose, and you sought to find one way for you to spin, to twist this whole concept, one of which may be tired, and you found one way to make it fun and exciting again. Maybe you should let characters in this world shine. But that right there is the most biased thing I could ever say. It's mostly because if you have let go of... Because I feel that you're just going to come back to the guilt again, And, oh man, there's a whole segment here I could just have about, emotional baggage and all that other stuff. And you just have to let go of that stuff. But what I'm going to say is that if you have come so far... If you have discovered a new story idea that excites you to write again... That's the best feeling. Maybe you can just wait a little longer. The most astute of you may realize that, once you have a chance to write again, you could actually go back to that old story idea you had, do lots of research, give it time, and revisit it once again. And I'll tell you from experience that when you do that, things work out. But in order to do that, you need time and you need distance. You need to get back into writing first. You need to get out of this slump. Even if it is writing a short story, even if it is writing a novella or a full novel series, you need to get out of this slump. You have to stop bashing your head against the wall. Let go of that guilt. Stop being so hard on yourself. And just, instead of attempting to manually make a hole through this wall, to just walk around it. The easiest solutions are, more often than not, the ones that appear the most impossible to overcome. But I can assure you, they may appear like the hardest thing in the world to do. Letting go of guilt, not being so hard on yourself, being a little less stubborn. But I can assure you, they are very easy to do. And if you do them, things will get a whole lot better. And so, welcome back to OMAKASE. I didn't mean this episode to get so life advice-y, but that's what happens. I got a feeling we're gonna head there, mostly because this is right up there, With the writing advice, it sounds just like life advice. Sometimes we get really stuck with things. Sometimes we feel that we are in a corner, that there is no solution to our problems, there is no escape. But more often than not, there are no walls around us. At least none that we can't just walk around or climb over. Okay? Okay. I want to thank you for listening. I hope that this video/podcast helped. I hope that I gave you another point of view, and if anything, that I was good company during your bus ride, while you're making dinner, walking your dog, grinding in your favorite MMO, whatever you do while you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a lovely day. And now, you can go now, because it's now for the silly part of the show, the part in which I head over to patreon.com/mkaren, and I give a big shout out to every single one of the people pledging $1 and up. It's just a little thing that I do to say thank you to everyone who is enabling me to create content like this. It is thanks to them that I can continue making these additional workshops. These are here because of their support. So why not give every single one of them, whether they're pledging $1 or way more than $1, give them all a shout out. So here we go. A. Howard, Atalak, Alistair Baywood, Alex Cast, Elisa Dudley, Amanda Stevens, Amelia, Angela, Aniexo Hoshi, Biting the Sun, Blarg, Brenda, C.E. Richards, Caitlin, and the other Caitlin, Kathy Lindsay, Christiane, Christine Dennis, Kristen Lofton. I just had this intrusive thought where I was like, oh man, what if Kathy Lindsay, now I'm not singling you out, but I'm just like, what if Kathy Lindsay is like, excuse me Max, you've actually been mispronouncing my name for 46 months. It's actually pronounced, Kathy Lindsay. And I'm like, no. Just having that internal, panic attack. Because I'm just like, oh no, what if I've been pronouncing this seemingly normal name in the worst way possible? I think about that, That's what happens when you shout people's names, every week. You're like, I do say that word weirdly. I don't know how to say the last name Lindsay. Lindsay? See? I'm doing it again. Anyhow, also, don't mind sounds in the background. It's been raining the whole day. I hope you didn't hear that. I hope Max from the future, who's editing this video, removed all the sounds of rain. Kristen Lofton, Clam Pastor, Connor. I have to that Connor comes from the back of my throat. Connor. I am the patron sent from Cyberlife. Okay, alright, that joke's dead. Erasos! Joffrey Raby, Gilbert Gaudreau, Hero Song, Irina Phoenix. If that makes Connor stop being a patron, I'm so sorry. That joke is there just to anger one person in the comments. Irina Phoenix, Janos Heybatsky, Jaytona Kirkwood. I get a lot of fun saying Heybatsky's name. Jaytona Kirkwood, Jeffrey James Williams, Jay Sawicki, Juan Nunes, K.M. Anderson, Kameshwar Rao Shaluri, Kaylee, Kiel, Lacey, Lier Killo, Lishadra, Mary Foster Smith, Nicola, Nicole Grissom, Nicolay, Noam Sohar, Novels and Tomes, Pablo. So there's actually a hardware reason why. What a weird choice of words. There's a hardware reason why I say Pablo. Why I don't try to make the hard P. And that is because P's and B's and T. No, it's P's and B's. Did your parents tell you about the P's and the B's when you were growing up? Okay, alright. P's and B's are very harsh sounds that can make the microphone pop, or it makes this horrible, crunchy sound on the microphone when you're listening to it later. So sometimes, when doing Pablo's name, I like to go just with the soft Pablo. The ASMR Pablo. Pat Eichson. Yeah, I said that, but then here's all people with names that have P's in them. Polycraftool, Raquel Fernandez, Rhiannon August. Don't mind me looking away thinking that I just spilled my cup of tea everywhere. Rhiannon August, Roa. Man, wouldn't it be hilarious that you would listen to this podcast for the first time? You're listening to Omakase for the first time, and you think, "Wow, this Max person sounds really insightful," and wow, like they must be the coolest person ever. And here I am, like, "Oh no, did I spill tea everywhere? Oh no, oh gee." Shimmer Tales. It's okay. Nobody's listening to this part. That's the best part because, except for the members of the End of the Video Club. See, this part here is a secret to everyone else. It's a secret to everyone. Is that how that quote goes? It's a secret to everyone, or it's a secret to... Yeah, to anyone? No, I think that's the quote. It's a secret to everyone. Did I say Shimmer Tales? Shimmer Tales! Sky D White. Soul Muse. There was no hardware reason for that. That just sounded cool. Soul Muse. Sylvia Leitilla, Synexia, and Wendy Christopher. Hey guys, welcome. The end of the video club, the end of the podcast. This monthly workshop is over. How y'all doing? How's life? If you're listening to this, how's life a month from when this goes live? I had a lot of fun with this particular topic. It's one of those very max topics, but I hope it helps. And if anything, you know how this goes. If the advice is not perfect for you, then make it work for you. And someone out there in the comments, I can already imagine, Max, was the creative reset the reason why you watched Gundam Thunderbolt? I'm like, yes! That's why I watched Gundam. I watched Gundam Thunderbolt, I watched all of Eva, and I watched a bunch of the original Gundam as part of my creative reset for wanting to write a story about giant robots. There you go. So all I'm saying is that I'm the best and that it works, Child tested, monster approved? Why did I pivot into monster when I meant to say mom? Okay, alright, this bit's dead. This has gone on for way too long. It's time for me to get out of here. Take care. Stay strong. And remember, today is a good day to write. Except if you have been really stuck with a story in which it's a great day to stop and begin your creative reset.